Good morning and welcome to the program. It is a Saturday morning. A warm welcome to our viewers. Sol TV, the dialogue is on. My name is Simapolo, and I, of course, must tell you that it is time to sit and analyze the events that made the week. A week that was a long week, and we are in the middle of a pandemic. We, of course, commiserate with the bereaved, those that the families that lost their loved ones. But again, we also congratulate those that achieved anything through this week. A warm welcome once again, and many issues to talk about this week. It is a week when we entered a new financial year. Then that means that the new taxes that were introduced late in this year of course have taken or took effect this week, and then that is why we will give it some time to discuss the effects of those new taxes and how they will contribute to the economy this time round. Well, there have been questions around the taxes that were introduced. Those new taxes include excise duty on rental income. Then we can talk about the tax on plastics. There was also a very contentious tax that was introduced, the 12% levy that will be charged on internet data, and that replaces the old tax now, the OTT, that raised issues in this country 3 or 2 years ago. And again, this week, of course, we had good news. According to the Ministry of Health, there was a reduction in the infection, the positivity rate. I'm talking about the COVID tests that have been made this week. There was a reduction in positivity rate, which brings smiles to Ugandans somehow. Well, to discuss all these issues, my guests are coming in. I already have in the studios the Deputy Lord Mayor, Miss Doreen Nyanjula is in the studios. I wish to welcome you to Sol TV. The program is The Dialogue.
Thank you so much, Mr.
Apollo.
Apollo. I'm so happy to be here, and good morning to all the viewers of Sol TV. I hope you're trying to manage the situation. I know it's not an easy one, but we shall pull through.
Good.
I know our business community is also undergoing a lot of stress. I'm here to encourage them not to give up, because as leaders in Kampala, we are here to stand with them, and we are here to fight for them. We know the challenges they are facing. To those that have lost their loved ones, we send our condolences to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Madam Nyanjula, allow me to congratulate you once again upon being appointed to the position of the Deputy Lord Mayor for the second term.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I really, let me also use this opportunity to thank my boss, the Lord Mayor, for giving me another opportunity to serve the people of Kampala, and the councillors for approving me 100%. I think for me that is what the people of Kampala demand of us, working as a team for the betterment of our city.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. You as a Deputy Lord Mayor, of course, as KCCA, you are a stakeholder in this issue of collecting and utilizing the taxes. We are talking about the new taxes that were introduced, and one of those contentious taxes is the one that replaced OTT, the 12% levy on internet data, and the tax on rental income. What can you say about these taxes? Because now that we have entered a new financial year, it's an obligation that we must pay these taxes. But that does not stop us from debating and discussing the effects.
Well, to begin with, the issue of taxation is quite controversial. But even when it is controversial, we cannot run away from discussing it or debating it. I'm a student of Adam Smith, and Adam Smith has the 4 canons of taxation. One of the canon is that the taxation, first of all, must ensure there is equity. It must ensure there is transparency. It must also ensure that the timing is convenient for the people that are supposed to pay that tax. So if I am to look at the new taxes that have been introduced and the percentage that have been added, I think we totally go against the renowned canons, the renowned principles of taxation. And of course, we are talking about taxation on airtime and internet. For me, I really find it very unfortunate, but I don't find it surprising, because we are talking about a government that has failed us for the last 35 years. And why am I saying this? We all know that currently the entire world has been hit by the pandemic.
Yeah, true.
And we transact most of our businesses, we do most of our communications using the internet. I sit on the Makerere University Council. I don't remember the last time we have interacted and met physically. Most of our meetings are done on Zoom. And trust me, the cost of internet has been extremely very expensive, even before we talk about the new taxes that have been introduced.
You're talking about the tariffs?
Yeah, already they're expensive, because we have an economy that does not come in to manage the telecommunication companies. Yeah, that today Airtel will say we have increased, you know. We have increased the amount of money we are going to be charging on our MBs, on our bundles and all that. And there is no one to control them. And of course, they'll tell us that this is a free economy, but still for me does not make sense that we already have telecommunication companies who do as they wish. And of course, currently, even most of there's a lot of if you want to know about your health, contraceptives for the women, diabetes, the applications online that people have embraced, and they use these applications. So for me, it doesn't really make sense. And my interpretation is that the president, Mr. Museveni, has simply been lying Ugandans by saying that he wants to see Uganda moving digital. Because you cannot be talking about that and then you continue putting taxes. So for me, that was a lie. And of course, we had the former Kampala minister, Frank Tumwebaze.
Yes.
I don't know what happened, because there's that time he had introduced UG internet, which was supposed to be free of charge. And by then it was catering for the people in Kampala. I don't know how many people actually got access to that. I don't know what happened to it. I don't even know if it is still there. So for me right now, if we had a government that really thinks about its citizens, a government that cares about the education of the children in this country, then would be moving in the direction of ensuring that now the whole country gets internet. Would be moving in a direction of ensuring we improve our internet connectivity. Because Apollo, I think you know that if you move to Kanungu, if you move to Chenjojo, even making a phone call is very difficult. That if you moved deep, not even deep by the way, the other day I was in Mukono, but in the village, I could not even access internet. So for me, would be looking at how do we improve internet connectivity, because now moving forward, we don't know how long this pandemic is going to take. So I think as Ugandans, we need to come up and make noise. We need to come up and reject this unfair taxation that is being introduced by the regime that does not care about us. Unfortunately, this has come at a time when Ugandans seem to be mixed in several issues. You know, at times you sit and wonder, what do I fight against and what do I leave? You start fighting against OTT. Before you finish that, now they have introduced internet tax. Before you finish fighting for that, there's relief food. Before you finish that, there is something. So this country, honestly speaking, is in a total mess. And of course, the other tax that has been introduced.
Before you leave it, Madam Nyanjula, I can remind you that there were agitations against this particular tax OTT, and that's how government switched and decided to scrap OTT and then shift this tax to internet data. Isn't it a bit fair that way?
No,
instead of paying directly that direct tax?
That's a lie. Because first of all, OTT was never brought in good faith. Most of us that oppose the government, and of course when we are denied the space of going for talk shows, we decided to find an alternative way of communicating to our supporters. We found an alternative way of communicating to the wide public and passing on our messages. So Mr. Museveni realized that was working against him, and he decided to introduce a Lugambo tax. If I'm to use his words, that is how he called it. But Ugandans are innovative. We found a way against that, and most Ugandans have not been paying that unfair tax.
You evaded the tax.
Well, why should I pay for it? Because like I have said, for me, it did not make sense to me. It was never brought in good faith. It was brought to fight those that were opposing the regime. So I didn't see any reason as to why you should pay for OTT.
And moreover, you opted for virtual private networks.
Moreover, when there is no clear accountability of the taxes that the people of Uganda pay. So for me, it did not make sense to me that every month I had to part with a 6,000, to pay OTT. That is money that I can give to the vulnerable. That is money that I can use to rally Ugandans to fight for other genuine causes. So for me, it did not make sense.
But the essence of tax,
the spirit,
Ms. Doreen, the essence of tax.
I'm talking about the spirit, because if you say this is Lugambo tax, that this is tax that is meant to curtail those that are opposing the regime, then honestly speaking, why would I pay for that? It was never brought in good faith. And of course, I am not sure if Facebook has actually been opened.
No, not
really. Is it opened?
No.
Now that is what actually inspired many people when they switched off Facebook. They had to find alternative means of ensuring they access Facebook. Now, before you cut me short, we know that more than 60% of Kampala is composed of slums.
Yeah.
It's composed of slums. So if we had a functional government, we would be talking of affordable housing in the city. Because for me, at times, I feel embarrassed, that I'm the Deputy Lord Mayor of Kampala, moving around the city. It looks like a modern village. I am not really proud of the city, that regardless of the noise that we make to central government, to make sure they at least increase the funding given to KCCA, given to Kampala, we have always been ignored. So definitely this burden is not going to go to the landlords. This burden is going to go to the tenants.
The rental income tax?
Yeah. This is an expense that is going to be paid for by the tenants. So to what extent do we really want to squeeze the people of Uganda? To what extent do we want to squeeze people who are crying out, their businesses are closed? We have our people in Chukubo who have even been denied an opportunity to go and pick their merchandise so that they find somewhere else to get money from. So for me, these things do not make sense to me. Because we have culture, those that want to go to access health services, those that want to go to school, everything. So it's very wrong for us to restrict it to commercial businesses. Now, at times I run short of words because we have talked and advised the government, provided alternatives, but of course most of the times we have a government that does not listen. We have a government whose priorities are totally different from the priorities of what the citizens are craving for. And for me, I think Ugandans once again need to raise up. This is not a struggle for Nyanjura. This is not a struggle for the selected few. And I can take you back in 2011. I participated in the demonstrations of Walk to Work. And one of the reasons why we had those demonstrations is because of the exorbitant amounts that were put on fuel and some other items. But when we raised up, our voices were respected. So Ugandans, I don't want you to simply watch and cry and you know, and wait for a few of us to speak on your behalf. I think these are issues that we must not take for granted. We all need to come up and speak. Our members of parliament representing the opposition, they need to come out. But like I have said, in Uganda, you don't know what to fight against and what to leave. Today you're fighting against this, then there's something new that is being introduced. But I think it's not just a matter of us coming to talk shows and saying, no, that is wrong. I think we need to really go beyond that, provide alternatives. And of course, we have this issue of belatedly responding to issues that affect us. Because we are talking about taxes that were passed maybe a month ago or 2 months.
Yeah.
But now that we have reached the implementation stage, that is when we have remembered to talk about it. And
but at least Ugandans have raised voices and made their concerns heard as these taxes were being established or introduced.
I don't think we have made enough noise. Because like I've said, currently we are entangled in ensuring our people find what to eat. And yet these taxes are also equally going to make it very hard for us. So if we really have ministers in place, the ministers in charge of ICT, they need to do something.
Madam Nyanjula, the justification from government has always been to widen the tax base, to fund government projects and programs, and they always look at your concerns as political, because you, Madam Nyanjula, and everyone at KCCA gets a salary from these taxes. That's why they think you at times take that political line on the issues like these taxes that have been introduced.
You see, for me, it's not about my salary or not, because I don't remember the last time that our salaries were increased. These are issues that affect the people of Uganda. And maybe Ugandans wouldn't really have a problem to pay some of these taxes. But what are the products? What do they see? Because if people continue to pay money and yet there's no service delivery, then honestly speaking, they would have a reason to say, no, hold on, why should we continue paying the taxes? So for me, it's not about that. It's not about our salaries, because I mean, it does not at the end of the day make sense. Even if my salary was raised to 15 million or 20 million, but we have over 60% of the youths who are unemployed and they have to depend on me as a leader. So still, that fraction would be so small. I would rather I am empowered, and even those that I represent are equally empowered. It does not make sense. Even if members of parliament get 40 million, but the people they represent continue being exploited, they continue, we are talking about people who do not have jobs. At the end of the day, it will not make sense. So it's not a matter of empowering or giving money to a few of members of parliament, for example, at the expense of the other ordinary citizens. Because, I mean, we are all feeling the impact currently, because all our voters are running to us. They have nothing to eat. They have no money for medication. So you find as leaders, you have turned into a government of sorts, which is really very unfortunate. And for me, I don't entertain this talk of saying, there's no money to do this. There's actually some money. There's money to do. There's money to do all these things, and that is why, as FDC, we have been saying there are some offices that we do not need, and this money can be diverted to cater for the needs of our people. For example, in Kampala, why should we have 2 ministers, for example? There's a minister, full minister, there's a state minister. I think currently we have like 10 advisors. Yeah. We have 5 RCCs.
Presidential advisors.
Yeah, we have presidential advisors. I cannot even count the advisors that we have in Kampala. We have 5 RCCs. Each division has an RCC. So for me, really, what is the essence of these people? Do we really need them? So if we have the Lord Mayor and the Deputy Lord Mayor and the councillors, we have LC1s, we have the mayors at the division, isn't that sufficient? Because after all, I don't see the input of these people. When the ministers come around, they're given different instructions. Frank Tumwebaze came with an instruction of making sure the Lord Mayor was impeached. That is an expense that the country would have excused from, and the money is diverted to cater for other people. Now, when that one left, Betty Kamya came in. And by the way, when Frank Tumwebaze was around, the regime was not sure whether the councillors they had then would actually all impeach the Lord Mayor. So they had to create some new constituencies, councillors representing professional bodies. 5 of them, they came in after impeaching, got a salary. After impeaching the Lord Mayor, they were told, now you can do what? You can exit. When Frank Tumwebaze left, came in the Honorable Betty Kamya. And you know the instructions he received, because they are not here to serve the people of Kampala. The instructions that Betty Kamya received were, make sure you buy all the councillors, make sure you bring all the mayors to support NRM. Now, when she failed, she even promised that she would deliver Kampala to NRM at 6%. Now, when she failed to do that, we all know where Betty Kamya is. She's currently fighting with the likes of Catherine Kusasira and Full Figure. So for me, these are expenses that can be avoided. We don't need RCCs. That in the middle of a pandemic, when we had a serious crisis, we saw new constituencies being created. Currently at City Hall, we don't even have space for some of the councillors. At Parliament, very soon we are going to see MPs fighting for seats, sweating because they do not have where to sit. So for me, this goes back to the regime in power. The priorities that they have are totally different from the needs of the people.
Well, Madam Nyanjula, leave alone what has been passed before, but we are in the middle of a pandemic, and you must appreciate that the economy has been ravaged, and the government needs some money, and the only viable source is taxes. Don't you really sympathize with this government at this particular moment?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Because our economy has not only been affected by the pandemic. Our economy was not doing well even before the pandemic.
The economy was growing.
So for me, I don't want us
actually grown to 6%.
I don't want us to use the pandemic as an excuse for our economy not to do well. Equally on that, you're the one who is saying that the economy is not doing well because of the pandemic. Meaning people's businesses have been affected. We have schools that have been closed almost forever and ever. We have hotels that are currently not making money. Yeah, we have people are failing to pay rent. They are failing to fill their tax return. So you cannot tax your way into being a first world country or a second world country, well knowing that the citizens are already squeezed. Actually, for me right now, would be talking about giving stimulus packages to our business community so that once again, they raise up, get some money, and then they can start paying the taxes. But you cannot tell people who have already been affected by the pandemic, their businesses have not been working, and you tell them, look here, we need you to pay more money. Where do you expect them
So,
to get money?
Madam
Where do you
Nyangila-
expect them to get money from? So if we had a government that is really functional, for me, I think they would be investing in empowering the business community, making sure they are provided with a stimulus package, making sure, and I don't want us to ignore this, because now we are moving to a direction where we shall be heading digital, making sure that our innovators are encouraged to take that lane. Unfortunately, that is not being done. That even the little monies that are collected are not being put to sufficient use. The little monies that are being collected are being mismanaged. So for me, whether you continue taxing us to the bone marrow, Ugandans will not achieve what we want. Our economy will not grow because we have a corrupt system in place. So let us not use that as an excuse. And before we deal with this corrupt system, trust me, it will all be the same. It will all be the same. Yes, before the pandemic came in, people were paying taxes. Can we account for those taxes?
Okay.
Can we see what those taxes have done? We continue to still borrow billions and billions of money, and yet even the money borrowed cannot be accounted for. So let us not use the pandemic as an excuse. We are simply dealing with a system that has failed us for the last 35 years. And for us to expect it to resurrect right now, honestly speaking, it does not add up.
All right, as we wind up, Madam Nyangila, if you say the government must come in with stimulus packages to some sectors that are struggling, and again, you encourage it to reach out to the vulnerable, then probably you're saying this government, as we speak, has money, or they should go and borrow more to fund the priorities
I already
of the moment.
told you there's money.
There's money.
And I've given you an example of Kampala. The ministers that we have, the RCCs that we have, the unnecessary presidential advisors, there are so many. I don't know. Do you know how many they are now? They could actually be stretching to over 200. Do we really need them? And I'm saying in the middle of the pandemic, instead of government maybe supporting the business communities, we saw them creating new constituencies across the country. So for me, these are expenses that can be avoided. For example, when there was a crisis in South Sudan in 2012, Mr. Museveni rushed without even the approval of parliament, went to settle a crisis in South Sudan. We don't know where that money came from.
But the dividends were visible. We have good trade relations, and we have achieved.
So are you saying South Sudan should be treated more of a priority than our own citizens who have nothing, who need to be empowered so that we can be able to create taxes? So we cannot be treated as second-hand citizens, and then we have South Sudan being treated as a priority. So the money can always be found. For example, why should the State House budget, State House, not even the President's office, be spending 2 billion daily at the expense of the ordinary citizens?
Well, I don't have the figures to that effect, that they spend 2 billion.
Yeah, that is what they spend.
Okay, I'll check. But
please go and check. That is what they spend daily, and you tell me there's no money? There's definitely money. Why should we spending all the billions that we spend on classified expenditure? But I've even never seen money being returned saying, okay, now since we didn't have a war, maybe this is what we saved. Nothing. So do we really need all these billions of money for security? Moreover, when insecurity is on the rise, that, you know, the regime is always so fast to run and ask for supplementary budget.
Yeah.
In the name of classified expenditure, in the name of security. How come they are not willing to do the same when we are in a crisis? By the way, to even take you back, even in the previous lockdown, government was so fast to run and ask for money for classified expenditure, even before we got money to deal with the pandemic. So for me, there's a lot of money that we can use to help our people. if only we had a government that was willing to put the priorities of the citizens right. So even before we talk of borrowing,
there is money.
There's money that is being spent on things, on luxuries, on things that are not there to benefit the people of Uganda, but on things that are there to benefit Museveni as an individual.
All right, it is the dialogue and it is moving. We have the Deputy Lord Mayor for Kampala, capital city, Ms. Doreen Nyanjula, and we expect to host the minister, the state minister in charge of gender and culture, to talk about the issues of government extending relief support in terms of cash to stressed Ugandans and all those issues. But we are still talking about taxes that were introduced last year. They took effect this particular week as the financial year, the new financial year kicked in, and those are the taxes we're talking about. The Deputy Lord Mayor is a key stakeholder in this particular issue because almost more than 50% of the budget is funded from revenues collected around Kampala. Hope so.
Yeah, true.
How has it been, these taxes coming back to change the face of this city, Kampala?
Actually, more than 70% of the GDP is funded by Kampala, not necessarily KCCA, but Kampala. And it's only 1% that is remitted back to KCCA. And for the last so many years, for the last 5 years, we have been crying to government to make sure, we've been crying to, because we run the city on behalf of central government, we have been crying to make sure that the funding is at least increased. Because for me, I hate doing things for the sake of casually. And I can tell you that last year, the Prime Minister came and launched a strategic plan. That strategic plan is supposed to cost, I think, 7 trillion or more than, but it's around there. But we are given a budget of 343 billion. This is money that cannot even fund the strategic plan. That as leaders in Kampala, we came up with a drainage master plan, a very rich drainage master plan, which also needs a lot of money to be funded. And that is why you see the city still continues to suffer floods. Yeah? But even that was never catered for. So we have many things we'd love to implement as the people of Kampala, make sure our road network is doing well, make sure we do away with floods, make sure whatever is in our strategic plan is implemented. But the funding is never there. And we are talking about Kampala, capital city. And you'll continue seeing these challenges because you have not been treated as a priority, that even when you make the loudest noise, the regime is going to say, no, that is not our priority. Our priority is in making sure we have more presidential advisors. Our priority is in making sure we have more money going to the NRM supporters. So we still have that challenge. And honestly speaking, I've lost hope that for the last 5 years, as leaders at KCCA, we have been budgeting for garbage trucks. Because we all know that is a challenge that is still facing the city, that the concessionaires, those who collect garbage on behalf of the city, cannot collect our garbage. Or if they collect, because we are talking about businessmen, for them they'll go to areas where they will get money. Then we have our KCCA garbage trucks, which are supposed to collect garbage in slums free of charge. Well, but most of them are not functional. And for the last 5 years, we have been budgeting for garbage trucks. Government responds and says, this one will go in and unfunded priorities. If I am to call it for according to them, it's not our priority and it cannot be funded. So we are not independent. That will come here, make noise, say what we want, but there is a ceiling. When Minister of Finance is sending to us the statement, there's a ceiling. For this, you cannot go beyond this. For this, so we still have that challenge.
So even when more than 70% of the revenues collected is got from Kampala, you are not satisfied.
But I've told you they return less than 2% of all that is collected.
But then you must appreciate that the big chunk goes to the countryside, and I mean those areas in the countryside.
What development have you seen in the countryside?
Mm.
And if you are the president of this country, would you rather put emphasis on the countryside, or you'd rather put emphasis on the capital city? For crying out loud, we are talking about the capital city. For example, if they decided to construct 100 kilometers of roads in Kampala, that would cover way too much, because most of the road network is between 1 kilometers to 2 kilometers.
Okay.
But 100 kilometers in the village, of course, that is quite huge. Yeah, and of course you have seen even some, I was seeing in Chiruhura, people posing for photos. I don't know if you saw those photos in the middle of the road. So for me, I would rather we first work on Kampala because this is the capital city.
All right.
All businesses are transacted from here. All the dignitaries you are talking about are here. So we cannot start talking about the countryside before we even deal with the capital city.
All right, those are the issues, and the program is The Dialogue. My name is Simapolo. She is the Deputy Lord Mayor for Kampala Capital City, Miss Doreen Nyanjula. And at this moment, we must go for a break. When we return, many more issues. We'll talk about the relief cash. This week registration kicked off, and people are very excited to receive the cash, considering the dire situation we are right in the middle of the pandemic. We go for a break. We'll return shortly. A warm welcome once again. It is The Dialogue. My name is Simapolo, and we have the Deputy Lord Mayor for Kampala Capital City, Ms. Doreen Nyanjula, in the studios, and we can now welcome the Honorable Minister, the Minister in charge of Gender and Culture. Honorable Peace Mutuzo, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for hosting me for the first time at Salt TV. And thank you for this innovative initiative. I want to congratulate my sister Nyanjura Amoti from on our way to.
Thank you, Honorable.
I congratulate her on this achievement.
Thank you.
And appreciate areas for identifying a female, vibrant female, from our region, yes, but a citizen, a resident here, for identifying her to take the leadership role for the second time in that portfolio of Deputy Mayor.
All right,
Thank you,
Honorable Minister, allow me to congratulate you once again for retaining that office.
Thank you so much, Apollo, and thank you for your prayers.
All right. Well, Honorable Minister, we have an issue of the COVID relief funds that are ready. I don't know, you'll tell us if they are ready to be dispersed to distressed Ugandans in this time of the lockdown. We'll ask you in a few minutes to give us a recap of how far that process has gone.
I'm happy the country is taking interest in knowing the details, and that's why we're here. So thank you so much for hosting us once more to throw more light and to capture issues that may be on ground that I think will be rising here for clarification. We are ready as government to support the vulnerable persons. I wouldn't call them poor because they are not part of the 39% that are not in the income economy. But because of the lockdown, their works have been disrupted grossly, and so they are not able to work. And they are living in very big towns. And you remember when the president made a pronouncement, was around 18th, towards midnight. It was around 9:30 something, and the lockdown was immediate, no movements. So it is our responsibility as government to take care of the citizens. And while we are looking at treatment, while we are also looking at the security enforcement, we are also looking at this household whose works was grossly disrupted and they are unable to find something to eat. So we have planned something small, but for survival. If you are using Omo, this time you can use a bar of soap. 100,000 shillings per household, and we are calculating a household to have around 5 people. It is actually national statistics show 4.7, but there's no way you can fraction a person. So rounding up to the nearest, we calculate about 5 people per household. At 100,000 shillings, we are thinking about giving around 20 kilograms of posho, which is at around 2,000 shillings per kilo. We are talking about 10 kilograms of beans, which is also at about 2,500 per kilo. We are talking about a bar of soap. We are looking at the cooking oil, around the 3 liters, 12,000. We are looking at others, around 20,000 shillings. But we are giving cash for flexibility. You don't necessarily have to buy posho. You can choose to do something else and want to send this money on their mobile number. We have a mechanism and a machinery that we have town clerks who have already written to, and they already have some data because UBOS collects data, NIRA collects data, but we want to improve on the data because some people have shifted, some others went back home. Some families were constituted yesterday, and you can't rule out cohabiting persons now to have married. So, and there are other families that are of a different way. It is not man and wife. It is like 5 people, same age, living together because they came to look for money in the Chivuro, around the Chifumbira zone. They are my people from Motisoro who come together and they constitute like a family, but they are living in one room rented. So all those things we are looking at the nitty-gritties. So our people are already collecting data, and specifically, we are using government machinery. The government civil servants are the ones collecting data, and not every civil servant. The town clerk, the community development officers, the commercial officers, labor officers, and others as he may assign are updating data. For us as government, no doubt we are ready, we have the money. It is waiting for who is ready first with his data. Money will be given on phone, sent on phone, but for those who do not have phones, telephones, may to wish to use another person's phone, but will be given a voucher. And they will get the voucher from Postbank. Postbank will be moving around, and we shall announce where the Postbank van will be. If it is going to be in Atete on this particular period, we shall tell them on Thursday afternoon, Postbank will be in Atete. For all those without phones, but who are under the following category, which I'm going to still elaborate, go there, get a voucher. But you have to get a NIN number. So those who already have identification cards, at least their data has been captured. But those who will not have identification cards will still get an opportunity. I think this is also an opportunity for people to get serious with finding identification cards. You know, many times when we talk about get this as a requirement, people don't take it serious. When we give them a year, they will all want to go there on the last day of the year. But identification cards is something very, very important. In the future, perhaps you will not be able to get medical services. Maybe your child will not be enrolled in government school if you do not have an identification number. So take it serious. But we shall give them a chance. We are working with the NIRA to ensure that they go around like they were registering last time. They are already moving around to register those who do not have identification cards, to give them a NIN number. A NIN number and an identification card is different. So they'll give you a small voucher to show what your NIN number is. You have to keep that voucher jealously so that you will use it to get a voucher which you are going to be paid against, and use your phone. If you don't have your phone, at least you give us the person you really trust, so that when the money comes, we are sure it will get to you. So, but we trust the categories of people have identified since they were working. Majority of them have the telephones. So we have specifically looked at those whose works were badly disrupted. And who could they be? You won't miss out the borders, because I was moving around today, and I didn't see many borders running around, although they were left to carry cargo. But you realize that many times they were carrying people than cargo even before. So they were disrupted, grossly disrupted. Buses are no longer working, so we shall consider the bus drivers, taxi drivers, conductors, baggage carriers, wheelbarrow pushers, totes, traffic guards, loaders in taxi parks, bus parks and stages. There were some people who were go-betweens in Chikubo, around there, the ones who would direct you, go to this shop, that's where you're going to find the other. And some of them would sell outside there. They were like vendors. There were barmaids and how do they call men? Barmen as well? Those ones.
You can...
Waiters.
Maybe waiters and waitresses.
Bouncers. The waiters could be different. You could be waiting to serve food, but there are those who serve specifically drinks that are of alcoholic nature. Then the gyms, restaurant workers, food vendors and buses, tax parks and the arcades. The artists and musicians, those ones have been in the lockdown for the last 2 years. They've never been able to perform. Comedians, producers, promoters, and all those that fall under that category. I may not have mentioned about filmmakers, which is not written anywhere. But for as long as we are talking about musicians, artists, so all the artists and performing artists are part of that. And by the way, artists, all artists, they also include the herbalists. Mama Fin and company and others are also part of this, those who do herbal medicine. Herbal medicine. Then we are looking at the saloon operators, massage parlor and workers, the teachers in private and government schools, but those who are not on government payroll. They are part of this. The car washers, the slum dwellers. Some people just live in the slum and they are street people. For example, since I was born, I've been seeing people on the street. Don't they grow? When they grow, they mature, they make other children, and they become a street family. So they majorly live in the ghetto. So we are also putting our eye there. The street vendors, the shoe shiners, the cobras, the orphans, and other vulnerable people. We are also looking at that category. And we are thinking we'll be able to cover about 5,117 107 families in a spell of, say, 1 week. So we are literally not sleeping. Now, these lists will be collected and generated by the town clerk. We already have where to start from. With the list that were collected before, we are now doing the cleaning and adding in a few things. But the politicians, like me and my sister, Honorable Nyanjura, will enter this system at a time of verification. Once they have generated their list, we shall hang them on as many boards as possible, on as many walls, such that people can be able to verify. Should you find a family that did not deserve being on the top list, or even on the downer list, you will be free to put a question mark, and we shall go and re-verify. You can also give us a call, because we shall have a toll-free line where we shall call and be able to report. So we shall constitute ourselves into teams, feed into the district task force. At the national level, we shall have a minister allocated a district, a municipality, a city, and we said we are going to cover Kampala Metropolitan. We shall also cover the cities and municipalities. So at the national level, we shall have a minister designated to supervise a certain area of that interest. And we shall give, actually on air, we shall read out the lists of who is going to fall where, such that should you find an issue or a challenge, you have somebody to call quickly to rectify it. But we shall also be joined by the members of parliament of those jurisdictions. Area member of parliament, the woman member of parliament will accompany the minister, joined by the area member of parliament, joined by the mayor or the town or the district councillors, and the district task forces feel up there to ensure that we do this work very quickly, but we also minimize transmission of this disease by we interact with as fewer people as possible. We go digital, so we shall exchange phones, we shall zoom in. Where required, you can also go and pay a visit, but in a distance. So this is not going to take us long. By 6, should your district be ready, should your municipality be ready, when you have already submitted, money will be wired on their account so that they begin paying. We believe this is going to take much shorter time than the food would, because one button can serve so many people. We believe it is also going to help us in having data, improving on our data. And we believe that the ideas on the ground will come to to inform the national task force to improve where there is need for improvement. We feel it is going to be accurate, accountability will be handy, and the design people will be reached. We are also not limited to these particular people. On the footnote, we have categorized some people, because on a number of occasions we have met journalists, freelance journalists. Not every journalist is in the studio. The freelance journalists who are just typing on their phones and sending and earning on a commission, they only earn when they work. So those that were scaled off by the media houses, we shall say put them down on the footnote, such that should there be another opportunity, we look at them. Institutionalized categories of people. There were some schools that did not necessarily close. Maybe they host the vulnerable people who are the persons with disabilities. Maybe they are hosting orphans. So those institutions also, we have put them aside. We register them, but we have to first go back and think through it. So in principle, we are beginning to the most vulnerable in the most urban areas. For now, we shall give it a spell of, say, 3 weeks. After that, we might go for others. Who knows? God may have answered our prayers. We pray that God answers our prayer, and the spread of this COVID ends. So by the 42 days, if we think the spread is not at such a big threat, we might begin easing the lockdown.
Well, thank you so much, Honorable Minister. I think that was an elaborate this presentation. Questions have been raised on how you zeroed down to those categories, and you have partly answered it. You said there are some footnotes that will include journalists and other people, but initially, the LOCs were thought to be are going to be part of this identification process, but in the end you kicked them out. I don't know how you came to that, and probably Honorable Nyanjula will come in with her issues. I know she has many other issues around it, but another issue is the time. Is time on your side? Because you talked about 6th. And 6th is Tuesday, just 2 or 3 days to go. And we've not seen people going around registering they would be beneficiaries. You can respond, Honorable Minister. Okay.
The categories we have not included, we have already explained that they will be on another sheet of paper where they will be registered, but kept at bay until we have mobilized resources to fit in. Whether we have time or not is that we have created time. For us, we are ready by 6th to raise money to whoever would be ready. For us on our part, as government, we have sent all the signals, the information, the direction, and the resources available. So whoever would have finished, we shall send money. Should you not finish within this 6th day, on the 6th, should you not have covered your area, we'll give you some time. Maybe 3-4 more days.
You're talking about town clerks and UBOs? Yes. Collecting that data?
Yes. Town clerks already have some data. Like last time we supplied food in Kampala. They already have something to begin from. And the vendors also are supported with the associations. There are people who work within associations and organizations. If we talk about the artists, they usually work in groups. So those leaders of the artists have also been incorporated within the system where they are going to support, because sometimes if you talk about a queen dancer, no one has ever registered himself as a queen dancer. Not even Chairman LC1 knows that he's a queen dancer. Because they go at night and they dance and come back, and you don't know what they do, but they are around and they are looking nice. They have lipstick all the time. They have nice clothes. You don't know how they survive. But the associations are going to help us. And you also mentioned about whether why we have not included LC1 chairpersons. We don't want to risk them. Neither do we want to risk even our politicians. Who do you exclude? Someone might be tempted as a political actor. You might be tempted to write everybody you think is deserving and end nowhere. But the government machinery is there to follow the instructions. Secondly, we want people who will be accountable, not just accountability by telling us you have finished the food. Accountability in terms of if money is lost, we know who to look for. So the political leaders are not supposed to sign on any voucher. That is why if you're not going to sign on a voucher, we don't also put you on the list of those who are going to identify. So we shall have our eyes on and our hands off. But they will be included in some area. Local government is going to receive 53.4 billion shillings. So all over the country, that money is going to reactivate the systems to ensure that they mobilize, they sensitize, they alert people, they encourage them and motivate them to ensure people follow SOPs. We have given money to security, about also some 50 billion plus. Security is 50 billion. Local government is 53.7 billion. We have given money to health, 206 billion, 0.4 to the Ministry of Health. To do what? Buy cars. Make sure that in every health center, people can get service. Whoever has found COVID positive can go to the nearest health center and find athromycin, and find zinc, and find anything related to COVID treatment. So that all the rest of the country, which are not even going to receive the money, at least receive the other services where they will find medication there. The health workers who have been complaining that we don't have
PPEs.
The PPEs and other machinery necessities for managing COVID patients and maybe cases, they should be there. That's why allocating money. We are buying 10 more million doses. If we have, by the end of this year, if we shall have covered, say, 80% people vaccinated, that is how many other countries have been able to manage.
That's more than 20 million.
Sorry?
That's more than 20 million.
That is more than 20 million.
People.
If we have more than 20 million people vaccinated, yes, it will not stop somebody from contracting COVID, but somebody will have gained some resistance. By the way, we don't know whether we shall not live with COVID for long. So we are prepared for all eventualities.
Honorable Minister, thank you so much. You've answered my question.
Sure.
But I request the Honorable Deputy Lord Mayor for Kampala to come in because she represents a big constituency, I am sure.
Thank you very much. I hope I'll be given the same time to respond to all the issues that the Honorable Minister has raised. But she congratulated me, so I also take this opportunity to congratulate her. Congratulations upon being selected amongst the fishermen that your president talked about. Now, I've attentively listened to the minister. She has clearly elaborated quite a number of issues. Now, for me, I don't think it's a matter of us sitting on the television and then reading out who is going to benefit. Because if you look at the list, The categories are quite many.
There are 16 categories.
Yeah, there are 16 categories. But if you're to do a breakdown, and I don't have the figures of my fingertips, but we can give a rough estimate. To start with, more than 60% of the people in Kampala depend on hand to mouth. And if we are talking about the Kampala population of 2 million plus, how many are we catering for?
157, 474
yes,
have been identified
so
in Kampala.
I'm now talking about those that depend on hand to mouth. They are over 60%. Kampala's population is 2 million plus. We are talking about taxi operators. We have more than 400 taxi operators, taxis actually. Now, when you add in the other people, the borders, how many border riders are we talking about? When we talk about saloon operators, how many are we talking about? You'll find that most of these businesses stretch up to more than 300. When we talk of bars, how many are we talking about? When we talk of artists, how many are we looking at? So you realize that the figures that are being...
You dispute the figures?
Well, the figures that are being given certainly will cater for a very small scale. And I can give you an example. I've also had the Member of Parliament for Nakawa complaining that in his constituents, they were moving parish per parish, only picking 5 people. I represent Makerere University. Makerere University has 4 parishes, Muluka 1, Muluka 2, Muluka 3, and Muluka 4. None of those parishes has been identified as people who are going to benefit from the relief. So for me...
Really? 4
yes,
parishes?
Yes.
And none?
None of them. And if you go to Chikoni, you go to Kawempe, you'll find that in some parishes, only maybe 2, 3 people have been picked. So for me, I really think it's very unfortunate for the government to just casually talk about things, you know, reading out the beneficiaries, and yet the people they have actually planned are very, very, very few. And most of the intended beneficiaries will actually not get money. Now, averagely, I had a different percentage. You may know averagely a Ugandan woman gives birth to 6 children. If you add on the 6 children, add on the husband, add on the mother, that is 8 people. But for purposes of debate and maybe to use the figure that has been used by the minister,
5 people
let us talk about the 5 people that she's talking about. You know, for me, I don't love using lump sum figures just for the sake of it. Let's go by the 5, not by the 8 that I was talking about. So if you get this 100,000, you divide it by 42 days, the figure you'll get will be 2,300. 2,300 and maybe some 50, I don't know, 2,300. Now, when you get that amount, it means for the 42 days, on a daily basis, a family of 5 is supposed to depend on 2,300. When you get that 2,300 and you divide it among the 5 people in that household, it means each of them is going to depend on 460 shillings. Now, Honorable Minister, how many people do you know that can depend on 4,060 shillings?
A day.
On a day. So for me, this is another mockery from the regime. And the regime is taking the citizens of Uganda for granted. And we are talking about State House, Museveni and his family. They have a budget of 2 billion a day. And we are talking about each vulnerable going to receive 450 shillings. So for me, honestly speaking, that is very unfortunate. That is money that most people pay in Kampala when they are going to ease themselves. And we are talking about, let me put emphasis on Kampala, where all the services are for paying. You want to go to ease yourself, you pay. You want to buy anything, water, you pay. There's nothing that is free of charge in Kampala. And the other day I was appearing with the Minister of Gender, the Honorable Amwangin. And she was saying that government is simply making a contribution. But you're making a contribution towards what? Because you're talking about people who are not working. So you cannot claim you're making a contribution when people cannot even afford access to Medicare. The minister here knows you've been seeing people making noise. So the money that is required, the oxygen, many of them are stuck home, so they basically have nothing. So for me, this money they're talking about, the 100,000, first of all, it is going to benefit a very small fraction of those that are affected by the lockdown. Now, I'm an advocate for the ably disabled, the PWDs, and I said, in this Chisanja, I'm going to put a lot of emphasis on that category of people. So for me, you cannot talk about vulnerability and you fail to talk about the PWDs. Because most of them, first of all, have underlying illnesses. On top of them just being PWDs, they just have other underlying illnesses. They have not been talked about. And they are saying there's a group that they are going to cater for later. Now, these are people that are really vulnerable. Because personally, I've been using my resources and resources from a few of my friends. We have been visiting these PWDs. And if you reach where they stay, you'll cry. These are people that cannot walk. These are people that have families. And these are people that have nothing to eat. These are people under the current lockdown that cannot even get access to Medicare because there are no means of transport. So they are different. Their situation is quite unique in nature. And even the communication, most of the communications that are being used by the Ministry of Gender do not even cater for the PWDs. So they have totally been abandoned. And in just 1 month, yesterday I was meeting their leaders. 47 of the PWDs have died. So I think they're just doing things for formality. To show the country that they are doing something. I've listened to the Honorable talking about some of the people going to be identified through associations. Now, most of the associations that we are talking about are associations that were registered towards the 2021 general election. And these associations, mainly associations for those that support the regime, they have been getting money through that, even when you go to the shoe shiners. Most of the associations, some of them are ghost, have ghost soldiers, ghost what. So for me, and I would love to go back, as leaders in Kampala, we held a meeting and we gave advice. So of course, most of the times our advice is ignored. That let this system be developed by the LC1 leaders. She's talking about keeping us away from responsibilities, but she's also a politician.
There is a risk.
It is okay, we are not fearing to take the risk because our LCs have always taken the risks. For me, it should be bottom up. It cannot be up, bottom up. This is what the regime is doing. So that is an element of poor planning. And of course, they are talking about UBOS. UBOS last did its statistics, its census in 2014. And in 2019, they carried out a survey, household survey. Now, a survey involves just sampling. You're not going to reach out all households. You're not going to know who is vulnerable and who is not, because there's a percentage that is going to be left out. So the methods that they are using to identify the vulnerable, first of all, in my view, they are lacking, they are outdated. And we even saw UBOS officials saying that the data that was used to distribute food in the previous lockdown was not elaborate. It had some gaps. So we insist we are going to use that same data, which is lacking. And yet I believe if the leaders were involved from the word go, for me, that would really make much more. You're cutting me short.
Honorable, your points are very varied and they need a response from the Honorable Minister.
I've not finished responding to her. I've not finished responding.
Okay,
to her.
we have only 15 minutes. You can use 3 minutes.
Okay, let her first come in.
All right, Honorable Minister, you can respond. It's a wholesome, but we only have few minutes.
Yeah, I want to thank my sister Nyanjura for raising issues that need explanation, and I'm here to explain. And two, to request that we avoid speculations. And three, to thank her for thinking about the vulnerable persons. I saw her the other day meeting the persons with disabilities who fall under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Like we had noted before, the persons with disabilities are being registered, but they should fall under categories.
In this system?
Yes.
In this process?
Yes, they are registering them.
Who is registering them and where?
I am sure that persons with abilities, some of them really work, by the way. When you go to the border posts, if
currently
you went to
they are
Busia,
not working, maybe to
if
just
you
give
went,
the minister information.
let me
And I
give
heard their
information
leader,
about
the
this.
MP, yesterday addressed a press conference complaining how there is nothing that is going on.
Now, the whole thing is that we have not reached the leaders' level of verifying. And that's why many of them are complaining right now that people are not included. For example, I highlight Makerere University. Makerere, and there's a number of areas around there on the top hill. If you go to Nakasero, we are not registering anybody in Nakasero. Many of the people in Nakasero are well-to-do people.
Yeah.
So we have looked at the Makerere Chuvoro instead, Katanga area. Whatever would have gone to the hill where the university lecturers are, we'll go to Katanga, we'll go to Chivuro.
I'll take you in Makerere University. There's that misconception about Makerere University.
First of all, let us not speculate. We are saying there is a time where these lists will be put to our attention as politicians, where we shall verify to see whether this category of people is not there or not.
That time of displaying the lists,
some of the lists were displayed
reading
yesterday.
them, like you said, you go and read lists in the media, on air, on radios. Do you have that time? Won't that take
There will
months?
be a display of lists on different areas where a number of people can be able to access, but not all falling there at the same time. And at that particular same time, we have put it on schedule that the political actors from LC1 will get people to look at the list, and we are the ones who are going to give it to them. Government or the town clerk will have to display the list to the villagers. And when you cross-check, that's why we have checklists. When you cross-check and these categories of people are not there, raise it to our attention or put it somewhere in the footnote so that when we sit, for us we have committed ourselves to sit every 2 days. The National Task Force, the District Task Force, that's why we have put money there to ensure they hold meetings almost every 2 days. So that what is not captured on ground, whatever mistake there is time to respond to it, because we are dealing with issues of hunger, starvation, and bailing out people from suffering. So we have time to do this.
Okay.
Let this system first begin. Two, on average, 4,000 shillings. I am sure if somebody was given 4,000 shillings, he will not starve to death. We are not saying that you should take meat on this money. That's why we are calculating beans.
She talked about 450.
Even if it was 460 pulled together, you know how much a bunch of bananas now is? 5,000, 4,000.
Where is that being sold?
But Honorable, you must appreciate that
just
200,
to get a kilo,
2,300.
we are giving the household.
Honorable Minister, you must appreciate that a calculation of 2,300 per family day is really little.
Yes, put it together.
We have finished putting it together.
That is for a family.
That is for a family. 2,000
Do you want to pluck off the 2,000 and give to an individual? We are saying buy in bulk, buy as a family. We are supplementing.
What can 2,300 buy? It cannot buy a kilo of posho. It cannot buy charcoal in Kampala.
Yes.
It cannot even buy beyond 10 fingers of matoke.
But Honorable Nyanjura, is there any time where government buys food for people?
Well, we are now
except in a crisis.
We are now in a crisis.
Now that we're in a crisis, if you have been taking a bunch of bananas, take porridge for your children to survive.
That is really unfortunate.
It is unfortunate because we are not collecting taxes.
Is your family taking
porridge?
Who
working are no longer working.
No.
So when you're in a crisis, you act like in a crisis. Actually, the first priority would have been medicine. We would have been able to supply medicine to everybody, perhaps. It would have been vaccine. But we are moving an extra mile to say, let us render some little support. What we can is what we are going to
Even
offer.
if you're going to take porridge, as the minister is saying here, because a kilo of posho is 2,000. And that kilo of posho, if you're to prepare porridge for breakfast, lunch, and supper, that means still it will not even be enough for a day.
Yeah, we are not
so
saying
the money we are talking about, Honorable Minister, I think let's not
what your responsibility is as head of a family.
Now, you can't supplement because these people are not working. And
Yes.
these people that depend on hand to mouth are the people that have been taking care of the unemployed, that you have not even looked at in the category of people you're talking about who are going to get money.
Yeah.
And
So
I wish you had given me more time to finish all your issues because they're quite a number.
Let her
You'll not
respond, and we
finish
will
that.
have,
And you're finishing.
Honorable Minister, we will
Yes,
have
I
10
can't-
minutes.
I will not finish them when you don't allow me.
Honorable
You can't
Minister,
finish them. The time
we have
is-
only
the
10
time
minutes.
is little.
You can utilize at least 5
time
minutes.
is quite little, but these associations, some people have been purporting and always want to grill government to push it as though it is political money. If it was political money, and if all these people were there supporting NRM, we do not have lost in Kampala and all these municipalities. We did not win in many of the municipalities. So it has nothing to do with political money.
Of course, you're now trying to win the people. You're
No.
trying to get them back.
By
Because
the way,
this is what you
even
have
if
been
you-
doing.
No. When has it ever happened?
Well, even in the previous
last
lockdown,
lockdown, when we gave
we
food-
had leaders in Kampala. They
when
were
we gave
sidelined.
food,
They
did
brought
they vote
Badyo
NRM?
Musi. They
That is
brought
the- that
Badyo
is the truth.
Musi. They brought Mike Mukula.
So,
they brought Peter Gwang.
Are they the
thinking,
ones that were they being voted there? Certainly not.
They lost.
Did
but
they
they
vote
were
NRM?
bringing
Did
NRM
they vote,
cadres.
did they vote NUP and other institutions?
And
So
of course,
that one is completely disqualified. It is not anything
So
to
it's
do with
not
and you
political.
think you can
Not
lure
at
them
all.
with
The issue is
food.
not
It
political.
has nothing to do with
Now, that
politics.
small fraction that you're talking about, let's wait and see. And we are here. The Honorable Minister is here.
Okay.
That small fraction that is going to get money, it is for those NRM
let her
supporters.
respond
We
to
already have an example of Buyukwe,
Okay.
where NRM registers are being used to identify
That is also
those that
not
are
the
going
truth.
to get
Otherwise,
food.
you'd have brought the lists here.
No, but it was on the
Where
news
can they put
yesterday.
NRM registers to go
It was
and
on the
register
Honorable,
people?
I request you to respond to the other issues.
And how would the town clerks get to the NRM registers?
Okay.
If we wanted to use politics, we would have used the political machinery.
Okay. Respond
But
to
we
the
have it on the
But
ground and we are not using it. We are saying government employed people,
Okay.
the town clerk and the machinery. And we are not saying we are ruling out the politicians. They come out at the level of verification of the
Okay.
lists. They come to give information where there is an issue. Let us respond to the issue. The good thing I've loved, whether opposition or government, is that we are all on one issue to fight COVID.
That's
Now
Okay.
that is to me
If
is
there are
very
pending
beautiful.
issues there, please respond to them in these 3 minutes.
Now, whether the survey which was conducted, there was a survey, there was a census that was conducted.
Yeah.
2014.
That gives us a beginning. That gives us where to begin from. But we are also saying we are not only relying on that information, go down and re-verify. So we have given them 6 days. From the 30th to the 6th, registration goes on. So at least that means that we have given time for them to verify, to put a list, to update the list. So by the time it comes to us, it is as good as refined. But we are not also ruling out small things that might happen. And we are saying at the level of verification, if there is an issue that is captured by the other machinery now, which is political, it will be able to put it to our attention. And we have not slept. We are saying every 2 days we must meet. Meaning that at every stage, there is a check.
You'll adjust.
We are always adjusting. And the good thing is that we are around. We are now speculating because we have not started. Let us start. And let's start together. And luckily, we're here on air to inform everybody what is happening. So the people know what to expect. We are not hiding information. We have saturated information to everybody that cares to read it and analyze it.
Okay.
And I'm happy you've hosted us together. These brains put together, something nice will come out of it.
All right. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Do you have another issue there that was raised by the Honorable Doreen?
It's me who wants.
Or we give her a chance?
I would love to hear many of the concerns because
All right.
either they help us improve
Okay.
or they get
Honorable,
or they
you
help
have-
us to,
Honorable, you have,
to explain to the
Honorable
people.
Nyanjula, you have 3 minutes
Well,
as we wind up.
thank you so much. I really sympathize with my big sister because defending a government that is not functional
That is also a speculation, otherwise you will not be in the government.
It's really very...
Honorable Nyanjura, you are in the
It's
government.
really very hard.
And your government, if it is functioning, then the central government is functioning.
I oppose the government. I oppose
it doesn't matter whether you oppose
the government.
For as long as you are
Because
functioning.
honestly speaking, some things are very hard to defend and even very hard
Maybe
to...
And also very hard to oppose if they are
very hard to imagine. For me,
Quite
I
hard
would
to
rather,
oppose
as a minister representing gender, really some of the things that we are saying, we do not say them because we oppose government. We say them because we feel for our people. We understand the situation that our people are currently under. When I say that 2,000 is very little money, and the minister says that it can buy porridge, for me that is
so
unfortunate.
you think the amount
because
should be raised?
Because she's a leader. Maybe you're not facing a lot of pressure. But currently, we have to buy food for our voters. We have to make sure they are transported. We have to make sure they have gone
Now
to...
you are breaking a law of transporting them again.
No, I think
Well, but what
Because we said don't transport people.
Shall we let our voters die in their
Those who are
houses?
sick,
And
maybe.
hire to the SOPs.
Shall we let them die in their
If they say
houses?
don't transport people, please,
Let me tell you, I have
them.
made it very clear. Some of these guidelines that do not make sense, we shall break them. I cannot afford to have someone die in the house because there was a guideline from an incompetent government that knows we do not have ambulances, and then I let someone die. Honorable Minister, I'm sorry. Those guidelines, we shall break them. And I think you have already been seeing the people of Uganda breaking those guidelines. You cannot tell people stay home, don't come to town, well knowing they're at home, they have a family. Because this lockdown, how many days are we into this lockdown?
No, I think we are going into 15 days.
15 days. You tell someone, please stay at home. This man has a wife who is sick. He has children that were that reported from school who are sick. He must feed this family, and you're telling this person, please stay at home. Now, no one would really love to leave their homes and come to town where they're going to be beaten, and come to town where they're most likely going to contract COVID. No one would love to do that. But because they are being forced, they have nothing to eat,
Times are
they have responsibilities, and they ought to survive.
All right.
But we are still talking about identifying the vulnerable.
Honorable Minister,
we are still talking about displaying the registers.
The issue is, can't there be a way to raise, to increase this package to accommodate many more people who are actually vulnerable at this moment?
Thank you so much, Apollo. And I want viewers really to analyze those who are keeping us in the lockdown for longer are the ones who are going to break the law and transport people.
Honorable
I
Minister,
still appeal to Honorable Nyanjura
Honorable Minister, I can give you an example of
I request
an
that
example
you give me
of
time
yesterday.
to answer because
I
when you
had
were
a
talking,
lady,
I did not.
Let
a
her
friend,
respond.
no, because she's quoting me wrongly.
Yes,
I had a patient who was sick.
Okay.
We are supposed to transport her to the hospital at 8 in the morning. Called around all the ambulances. There was none that is available.
Now, patients are being transported
until 7
without
p.m.
an ambulance.
Until 7 p.m. When we say this one,
what we know is that the sick
precisely
have been catered for in this lockdown. Maybe if it is,
and I'm
even
telling
a
you,
border riding a sick person will not be stopped,
stopped
for as long as whoever is enforcing the law can vividly see that this person is sick.
So would you rather
the person who is sick is not? You cannot.
Would you rather I would have kept my cousin in the house waiting for a border to transport her?
When we mix voices,
no,
then people will not
because you're
understand us.
quoting me out of
When
context.
you were
would you rather?
I gave you time.
Okay. What
And
exactly?
I said
What
you
exactly?
are not going to let people die in the houses. That you are going to transport them home.
Not to transport them to go and get to hospital.
Those who, the regulation is clear, no one stopped anybody being transported
but
to
that's
hospital.
what I'm talking about, and you're saying it is wrong.
Okay, that was wrong.
No.
That was wrong.
That is just turning around.
No.
Yes, that is just turning around your point.
No.
But I am telling Ugandans, watch the people who are going to make mistakes here. We want this lockdown to end as soon as today. So anybody really breaking it is not in the fight. of
30 minutes.
ending the lockdown, but is doing politicking.
There's
So I
no
want to appeal
politicking when people
that
are
this
dying in
comes
their
to an end.
houses. We can't leave them to die from there.
Please don't risk.
Okay.
Because tomorrow you'll be behind the bars, unfortunately, and which I would not like to see. I want us to go steadily together in unity to ensure that we end this lockdown. By the way, this lockdown is just scientific. If you did not move to another person, only 2 meters, COVID would not catch you. And the best way to survive is to keep to yourself.
You're the one who told
So
us
if
about how
people are
families
going
live.
to transport you back home in trucks, in ambulances, facilitating because they are in government in charge, they are in their local government and they are the leaders. I think that is wrong. Let us work together as a team and we shall end it together. 2, raising more money is
there a
desirous.
possibility?
It is desirous. Even as we talk, we first started at 200,000 plus discussing, and it was not possible to find the money available. We collect taxes, but all the agencies that have been supporting us to collect taxes are locked down. So what do we do? The little that is available is what we have apportioned. And by the way, if we had more money, we have more town councils which are living in a more less place as the urban centers of Kampala. My constituents of Nyangabu would have loved to join to be supported with this fund.
They are lucky they have a minister.
Yes,
give them
they
a
are
share
lucky they have a minister,
from
but
her
I am
money.
not selfish. When we agree on the principle, I implement the principle of government. I am a member of parliament, I represent them, but I also act in principle.
Okay.
So in principle, when we have little, should we not give at all or first give that? Such that when we have more, we are also spreading out. We started with Kampala the other time, giving out food, even to some families that were not necessarily within these categories. But why didn't people complain? Why didn't they riot? It is because that was what is available.
You didn't
But we also got lessons out of it.
They even brought written
Honorable
bills in
What
Minister.
lessons
parliament.
we are
Honorable
now
Minister.
implementing in accordance with the lessons we got to improve. I'm saying that keep hope alive.
Okay.
Most importantly, work within the means.
Okay.
Don't wait for the Nyanjuras to tell you that you deserve 300,000 when it is not there.
Okay.
They know how much
Honorable-
taxes we have been collecting in Kampala. We are not collecting it anymore.
Honorable Minister, I ask that we break, but the good news is that management has given us some 30 more minutes. If it is okay with you, ladies, we can take
Oh,
those
sure.
30 minutes.
Thank you so much, management,
All
for
right.
giving us more
Thank
time.
you.
Our viewers, the dialogue, the dialogue is going on. We have the Honorable Minister, State Minister in charge of Gender and Culture, Honorable Peace Mutuzo, and she is a legislator representing Bunyangabo County in the 11th Parliament.
Nyangabu district.
Bunyangabo District,
Yes.
I'm sorry, and in the 11th Parliament, and we have the Deputy Lord Mayor for Kampala, capital city, a big and key stakeholder in these particular issues. We'll be returning back after this short break. Stay on Salt TV. A warm welcome once again. It is the dialogue. My name is Simapolo. We have the State Minister for Gender and Culture, Honorable Peace Mutuzo, and we have the Deputy Lord Mayor for Kampala, capital city, Honorable Doreen Nyanjula in the studios. We are looking at the gesture, actually good gesture from government, trying to support people stressed by the lockdown. And we are talking about the cash relief support that is ongoing. The minister says the process is ongoing, and by Tuesday the government will be starting on the process of disbursement, and hopefully we will see things change and things happen. Honorable Minister, as we conclude, some people, a section of Ugandans, think that there is money, and this is just a drop in an ocean that you've decided to allocate to this particular issue, which looks to be very, very critical.
We used to have money. And by the way, we were collecting sufficient money that would have supported us, but we're getting into 2 years in a lockdown. And we cannot, business is no longer as usual. We are now at half capacity of the tax collection. Now, even with the half capacity of tax collection, we were not feeding the people, even though we had the vulnerable ones. Even before the lockdown, we have always had vulnerable persons. I've always had people with the disabilities. By the way, I had not even answered her issue of the people with the disabilities. And
let us first finish this
are
one.
living under institutions, but also institutions which are not funded, which are not supported.
You said they are being registered.
But they are being registered. Even elderly persons, above 80 plus, we already have SAGE, but there are those who are 79 below and are living in homes, are maybe taking care of the orphans, some children. Those are part of the footnotes. So we're saying register those ones, and you come back and give us a feedback, because they're not necessarily in every parish or in every village. So they are being registered. So you said people think you have money.
Yep.
Government, yes, has had a period of time where we're into a steady progress, when we're developing, where we're collecting funds and taxes, and until the COVID hit us. So let's not just look at COVID as a disease, but we look at the bottlenecks that come along with COVID. They have hit the economy badly.
Honorable, the economy has been hit severely. We agree.
Yes.
And the collections are very, very, very low at this moment.
Which we are
but I want to remind you, Honorable, that we have borrowed a lot, and a lot we have borrowed much. Actually, as we speak, IMF approved a 3.5 trillion loan, and those are the monies probably that will be looking at these critical sectors of the economy.
Usually when you make a borrowing, it is attached to a specific infrastructure. And the specific infrastructures, you cannot divert those resources. It was meant for the construction of a road, a hospital, or a dam. You are not about to divert that money. So we are continuing to service even the loans we had borrowed many years ago, even within half collection.
Can't we borrow for this?
For this, what we have is what we are using. When is it ending? Where are we going to get their funds? We had borrowed, and we are borrowed up to the edge of borrowing. So for now, what we are collecting is what we are plowing back into the people. I was telling you that we have, out of the money we have, we are going to give 206 billion to the Ministry of Health to ensure that all the health centers, and as we talk, we are talking about money for the vulnerable people who are only in Kampala Metropolitan, the cities, and the municipalities. The other people who are not benefiting have not complained. We may think about 2,000 shillings is too little, but how about the cities, the town councils, and the villages, which are bringing the food here, which we all eat? They are not complaining, they are not beneficiaries, but what we are going to do for them is to ensure that the health facilities are equipped enough. We are giving the local government to reactivate the structures, to do the more mobilization, sensitization, and campaign, 53 billion shillings. Security must enforce everywhere to the deepest borders of the country. ICT, 8.1 billion shillings is being allocated for more time to do sensitization. I want to thank Salt TV for giving us extra 30 minutes to do this work, because I think they have prioritized it as a noble job to sensitize the public. We are at then the relief and the vulnerable persons, 54 billion shillings. Of course, when we get more funding, like yesterday, I saw a group of people giving out more money to the Prime Minister. And immediately, we allocated that money to add more vaccines. Because if more people are vaccinated, it would support or quicken the process of easing the lockdown, because even if you contracted COVID, once you are vaccinated, at least you have some degree of immunity where treatment, simple treatment, would bring you back to life. So we are really managing a crisis, and this one I want to emphasize. It's not business as usual. Even as we debate, we have not seen this kind of war in the last 30 years plus. The war may not be one that you are going to engage a ballot or a gun. The war is this invisible thing that starts with you slowly, eats you up quickly, and ends your life. All we want is people to survive. Even if you survive on a glass of water, or a porridge, or beans, survive. Keep alive. We can only disagree when people are alive. Most importantly is to keep lives running healthy. So we are giving priorities. Not all these institutions were there before. Previously, we were talking about food. And we had food collected from everybody. All well-wishers were collecting food at the time. But a time came when the well-wishers also were constrained, either to get the food, to give out, because the lockdown has taken a lot more time. So in the circumstances, let us manage from the envelope that we have.
All right.
But we are not saying that we shall not increase or we shall not add. Should circumstances prevail to indicate that we are going to be here for longer in a lockdown, then we shall have to look around for more. Previously, we were only looking at Kampala. Why is it now that we have moved to more 40-something municipalities, now 42 municipalities? It is because of the intensity of the problem.
All right.
So let us look at this problem as a problem that affects everybody and not look at what is sufficient for there is an ideal situation.
Yeah.
We are not into an ideal situation. We are in a crisis.
All right, Honorable Doreen, don't you really appreciate that we are in a crisis, and in such a times, you have to look at survival only. I
don't know what you mean when you talk of survival. I already gave a breakdown, and we realized that if we did a breakdown.
Yeah, that little
and
that is going to be given to people is for survival.
You see, the way you talk, it's as if government is doing us a favor, and yet we are entitled. We are citizens of this country. So for you to say, like, at least that you can look through that, it's better than nothing, because even if we are talking about taxes, it's us that pay these taxes. Even if we are talking about loans, it is us citizens that service these loans. So for me, this is not a token from government.
True.
We are entitled. Ugandans are supposed to be looked after by the government in times of crisis. And I already gave you an example. That when there was a crisis in South Sudan, Mr. Museveni moved without the approval of parliament, used a lot of money, and he came in to solve that crisis. We are equally in a crisis, and the same thing can be done. Now, the other challenge is, the issue is actually not necessarily the money.
Really?
The issue is, how is this money used to benefit the intended beneficiaries? Usually that money does not reach the intended beneficiaries. Of course, the Honorable here will tell me to stop talking in a speculation. But I mean, we have been there before. I can only use the past to judge the future. And I have been talking about our former minister for Kampala, who is currently the Minister of Gender. Even the other day was appearing with her on the talk show. When Kampala was allocated 2 billion, she took 1 billion. Up to now, we have never received accountability for that money. So my appeal would be that for once, those are in positions of power. Let them not use this money to build malls. Let them not use this money to buy new cars.
Has it happened before?
Let them use, well, I'm making an appeal. Before it has
because
happened,
she was saying we should not
before it has
debate
happened, we have seen Gavi funds
in anticipation and speculation.
I've said I'll use the past to judge the future, and that's why I'm appealing to them. Let history not repeat itself. We have seen money that is meant to be used to treat the people of Uganda being diverted. You know, some of the ministers that were found guilty, but up to now they still occupy leadership positions. So let them use the little money that has been allocated. Let this money reach the intended beneficiaries. Like we have always said, previously, we are only talking about COVID. We are simply hearing about COVID. COVID was in China, COVID was in the US. But now, most of us have been affected. We have relatives who have died because of COVID. We have friends who have died because of COVID. We have people who are sick currently and we are treating them. So this is not something really, we are not politicking, but we are telling you what is on the ground.
All right.
This is a crisis and we are willing to join hands. And that is why you have seen us move out, help those that are stranded, help those that are in need. Let this also not be a cash bonanza. Let this not be a cash bonanza. Let this be an outreach for our people.
Okay.
And when the minister is talking, I realize there's an uncoordinated communication. I was reading the Daily Monitor on Wednesday, and the minister was very clear. The Minister for Gender, Betty Among, she was very clear that no money is going to be added. When I was driving here today, I was listening to her. She was appearing on a talk show with the leader of opposition. And her communication was still clear that the groups that have been identified, those groups that are just a drop in the ocean, she was very clear that no vulnerable person is going to be added on that group. And of course, for me, that keeps me wondering, do we really have people in positions of leadership that care for our citizens?
Okay.
Because if we are telling you the numbers you have identified are few, and you're also agreeing with us, but you're saying they are not going to be added on the list, then how are they going to survive? Who is going to cater for them? So for me, we really need to desist to do things just for the sake of doing them. Doing things casually, doing things because we must be doing certain things, and yet we are not going to help the people that are vulnerable.
Honorable Minister, from the submission of the Deputy Lord Mayor, people are skeptical about the frugality and the prudence in the workings of the government, and that is why they are concerned that maybe the process may not be as transparent as expected.
The good thing is that they are serving within that same government and they have been able to deliver. My sister Nyanjura, if she had not delivered, she would not be here. They would not have voted her back. So that same government
voted against all odds. Against bullets. There were bullets on the day of my election.
If they had voted against you, then you would not be here.
Against vote rigging.
So you made it.
No, against all odds.
If they had rigged you out, you would not be here.
They did, but
so
we
certainly,
still defeated them.
That is self-defeating.
No.
You bring a point and you defeat yourself with it.
Against all odds. That is different.
The reason, the fact that you are here and having been voted shows that the people voted you back. And there was an electoral system that took place, organized by government. So if they rigged you, then that means you'd have been behind. So, but you're here because there was transparency, there was an election which took place. So, yes. So unless you are saying you came in a fraudulent way, which I don't believe, then now let's begin somewhere. That's what I said.
But are you not concerned?
When the minister was saying that there are people who she knows are vulnerable, but the list is not going to change, we begin from a principle of identifying the scope and identifying the categories of people. And for clarity, I have read out the categories of people that we are first going to register. The other ones, put them aside as a footnote. We may get back to it if the situation warrants. That is what we have decided. And we are meeting every 2 days that passes, meaning that we are getting feedback from the population and also factoring it to inform policy. That is why we run a democratic government. Two,
Honorable, you've not answered the concerns. You've not answered the concerns about transparency in this process. With you supervising the process, your ministry supervising the process. People are concerned.
The transparency is what we are already exhibiting. We are on air. We are discussing issues that come. We factored them into our program, and the transparency is that we are going to put the lists on the notices, and also to the attention of the politician, actually up to LOC1. They will have privy to the lists, to the information, but we do not want the LOC1 and other political leaders to be the ones to begin the journey of generating a list. We run a risk of somebody bringing in all their supporters and others also complaining that the reason you have not put me on the list is because I did not support you.
But they can do that.
So that is why, that is to disqualify the fear and the contention that this man may be political. No, it is not going to be political. That's why it has been very clear. The artists, the performers, the maids, the waitresses, all would be factored into.
Okay.
On the issue of, she stated somewhere that the president went to Sudan and as the commander-in-chief.
Yeah.
Commander-in-chief has a prerogative. If there is an emergency, you know, one shot can make the whole country paralyzed.
But we are in an emergency now.
Yes, we are in an emergency where we can talk and discuss, where we are being guided by scientists on what to do. But if you let people enter a country, if you let the progressive people enter a country, even in a day, weeding them out can cost you millions of years. So keeping them there, taking a decision, using the prerogative, which are enshrined in the Constitution, was critically important. And I want to salute our president for that. Keeping this country, Uganda, secure for the last 30 years with the stability, when we are a country that is landlocked.
But how come you don't see the instability that we have? How come you're not even aware that your fellow minister just survived being assassinated?
Thank God, I'm sure you are reading the papers.
You're not aware that you're not aware
we are even gotten to the people that were shooting at him.
There isn't insecurity. You're not aware that Abiriga was killed, your fellow MP.
Thank you very much. Are we looking for those ones? Government is already putting in place systems. Honorable Nyanjura, kindly give me some respect.
Our time is running out. Let's give her 1 minute. 1 minute.
But
if the 2-3 people are talking at the same time,
the public.
I was listening when you are misguiding the public.
No.
And I informed.
Okay.
And listen to me when I am informing the public.
Let's give her,
because at least
we only have ladies. We only have 5 minutes.
Yes.
Let's give you
at least
1
I'm
minute.
Speaking from authority.
Let's give you 1 minute, and we give her 2 minutes. Then we'll get back to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, also Nyanjura, for listening to me now. So when you talk about the Gavi Fund, and people have gone to court and have been acquitted, who am I now to challenge them when court has gone and scrutinized the details? And somebody is acquainted. So I don't want us to speculate, because we have speculated before and systems have disapproved us, like this Gavi Fund. There are those who paid back, there are those who were found guilty, but there are also those who were found clean.
All right.
But the speculations had covered all of them. So I think it is important that we really look for facts. And good enough, you as a student of the law, and at least you follow systems. If they say these are the research methods, you don't go beyond
Honorable
the research methods.
Minister, I just ask you that we conclude, but I want you to first let Honorable Nyanjura.
Now let me talk about one small thing last week. That sometimes people ask for accountability before the time. If the Auditor General has not gone through the accountability of a sector's budget, and you jump in the middle to ask, Honorable Minister, we're putting you into the rock, answer for 1 billion shillings loss. Okay. You should wait for the Auditor General.
He actually released a report, and he said money for COVID was misused. Okay. I hope you are aware of that.
Yes, but where does a minister sign for money?
Okay,
in all government structures, there is no point where a minister signs for money.
We'll be eagerly waiting for that moment.
Exactly.
Good enough you're in charge. Honorable Nyanjula, we only have actually 4 minutes. Utilize 2 minutes, then I give the rest to Honorable to conclude.
Well, thank you so much. I've attentively listened to the minister, and like I have said, I sympathize with her.
Really?
Because it's not easy speaking for a government that has failed us for the last 35 years.
But people have trusted it.
I really, no, they have not. Me, I've actually never seen anywhere your president thanking the people of Uganda for voting for him. I have never.
That you
It
don't
has
listen.
never happened. So yeah, it has never happened.
First of all, if you are not interested in him, you don't even listen to him.
I've never heard him thank the
But
people
on
of
every
Uganda
occasion, the
for
president
voting
is there
for him
to
because
thank
he
people for
knows
voting
they
for
don't
him.
vote for him. He has never.
I request.
But anyway, let's not.
I request you to take
Now,
a message
don't
to
go
your
personal.
people.
Let's concentrate on the topic now.
At least in
Because
in 30
your anger
minutes.
against President Museveni and the people who work with him is being
In a few
transferred to
minutes,
COVID.
Honorable Nyanjula, take your message to your people.
Now, in a few minutes, we shall continue advocating for our people. We shall continue fighting for them. And we shall continue making proposals that make sense to us, to the honorable ministers, to those that are currently manning the situation. And there shouldn't be anything cast in stone. We should adjust if it is for the benefit of our people that are living miserably. The people of Kampala, you're not on your own. We are going to stand with you and we shall continue fighting for you. Please keep safe.
Thank you so much, Honorable Doreen Nyanjula, the Deputy Mayor for Kampala, capital city. Thank you so much. In your concluding remarks, you have 1.5 minutes, Honorable. Assure Ugandans that this process is actually going on and they will soon be receiving this support.
Apollo and Nyanjura, the Honorable Nyanjura, I want to thank you for being very assertive and taking interest in this matter. And Star TV, bravo.
This is Salt TV.
Sorry, I'm begging your pardon, Salt TV. Bravo for putting us on, and I wish we could continue these debates almost every day. I am available, a call away.
Good.
I'll always be here. Good. To make more clarifications. And I want to first appeal to Ugandans as citizens. We must survive as a country. And every life counts. So let us get into this program with one clear vision of ensuring that the people are safe, healthy, and alive. We can always debate, agree, and disagree when we are alive. But for as long as our people are protected first, we are a call away. And let's not take issues personal. I've liked the opposition for once that we are talking about lives. And everybody is interested. I was watching Elias Lukwago yesterday, the mayor, talking about COVID and appealing to the people to ensure that we follow the SOPs. This whole matter is a science. If we don't follow the science, we'd have some issues. We are not ruling out our local persons who have developed their own medicine, and I want those who developed Covidex. They are herbalists, and they are from my own docket. I want to thank them for developing up to that level. We are beginning to challenge many countries. Let's not get to the level of India by continuing to prolong the debates and all that, and we are not taking decisions, and we are speculating about everything that comes. Please, let's unite for once and ensure that COVID gets out of our way. We are tired of carrying these things on our faces. If we can have them tomorrow, but for as long as we are safe, it is only when we are safe that we shall have them off. So I want to appeal Ugandans to support the government program and all people in the opposition and whoever. Trust us, we shall do this, but we can only do this work once we are together. Even if there is an error you have seen, bring it in good faith. Don't begin by so-and-so has stolen. Begin with how can we do this work better? So that you give this time also to prepare for an accountability. And the reason as to why we are going for cash, we are going for banks, post-bank to pay. We are going for MTN and other telecommunication companies to pay, is to ensure that there is a systematic way of accountability. Money is not lost. We assure you that we shall deal with COVID like we have dealt with other things like the locusts. We have dealt with the war 34 years. There are many young people that have never seen a bullet anywhere. It comes once in a while with some bad persons, and those bad persons we're getting to them.
All right.
Good enough reports show that those who attempted on General Wamala's life have been found. Thank you so much for watching us. Please keep tuned in.
Honorable, on Tuesday we will see messages coming in. You are sure? On by Tuesday?
Yes.
6.
Yes.
We'll see messages coming in.
Yes, by Tuesday, for the list that will be ready.
All right.
I want to emphasize on readiness.
Okay. Good viewers, it's a pleasure hosting you all this time. We must thank our guests. Honorable Peace Mutuzo, the State Minister in charge of Gender and Culture. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
All right. Honorable Doreen Nyanjula, thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to host you, our viewers out there. The dialogue will be going out and will be returning next Saturday. My name is Simapolo. I must say it was a good discussion. Good afternoon and a good weekend.